How do they make you feel? This might seem like such a simple question, but I promise you, it's the most powerful thing you can ask yourself in any relationship. Because at the end of the day, you can analyze compatibility, shared interests, long-term goals, and all the logical reasons why someone should be a great match for you. But none of that matters if, deep down, you don't feel good when you're with them. You ever been in a situation where on paper, everything looks great? They check all the boxes, they're attractive, smart, maybe they even have their life together in a way that makes you think, I should want this person. And yet, when you're around them, something feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it. Maybe you feel tense, maybe you're constantly questioning yourself. Maybe you just don't feel as confident or as happy as you normally do. That feeling, that's everything. That's your body, your intuition, your subconscious, all screaming at you, trying to tell you something isn't quite right. And this is where so many people get stuck. They think, well, I just need to adjust. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overthinking it. So they ignore that feeling and push forward because they don't want to lose the person, or they think this kind of discomfort is normal. But here's the truth. When you're with the right person, you don't have to talk yourself into it. You don't have to convince yourself to stay. The right person makes you feel good in their presence, not anxious, not small, not constantly wondering where you stand. Now, let's break this down further. The way someone makes you feel isn't just about how they treat you when things are easy. It's also about how they make you feel when things aren't perfect. Because life isn't always perfect. So think about it. When you bring up something that's bothering you, do they listen? Do they care, or do they make you feel like you're overreacting? When you're excited about something, do they celebrate with you, or do they make you feel like your joy is inconvenient? When you're having a bad day, do they try to understand, or do they just disappear and leave you to deal with it alone? It's in these little moments, these day-to-day interactions, that you really start to understand what someone brings to your life. A relationship should be a place where you feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. And safety isn't just about someone not actively hurting you. It's about them being a person who consistently adds to your happiness rather than taking away from it. It's about feeling like you can breathe around them, like you can be yourself without fear of judgment or rejection. A lot of people will tell you that love is supposed to be hard, that relationships take work. And that's true to an extent. Every relationship requires effort, compromise, and patience. But the right relationship, it shouldn't feel like a constant battle just to feel valued. You shouldn't be spending every other day trying to decipher their feelings for you, walking on eggshells, or questioning if they truly care. Real connection isn't built on uncertainty. It's built on consistency. And let's talk about that for a second, consistency. Because it's easy to feel amazing around someone when they're putting in effort. In the beginning, they're charming, they're saying all the right things, they're making you feel special. But what happens when the novelty wears off? What happens when they don't feel the need to impress you anymore? Do they still make you feel valued, appreciated, secure? Or do they slowly start pulling away, making you feel like you have to earn their attention? This is why it's so important to pay attention, not just to the highs, but to the in-between moments. Because if someone makes you feel incredible one day and invisible the next, that's not love. That's inconsistency. And inconsistency breeds insecurity. The right person, they make you feel good, not just when it's convenient for them, but because they genuinely care about how you feel. And I know what some of you might be thinking right now, but what if I've never had that? What if I don't even know what it feels like to be with someone who makes me feel safe, appreciated, and secure? If that's you, then here's what I want you to do. Start paying attention to how you feel after you spend time with someone. Do you leave feeling lighter, happier, more confident? Or do you feel drained, unsure, maybe even a little sad? The right person lifts your energy. The wrong person leaves you feeling depleted. And this isn't just about romantic relationships. Think about your friendships, your family, the people you surround yourself with. because the way someone makes you feel is one of the biggest indicators of whether or not they should have a place in your life. If you constantly feel like you're proving your worth, or like you have to shrink yourself to be accepted, that's not love, that's emotional exhaustion. Here's something else to keep in mind. Sometimes we ignore how someone makes us feel because we're afraid of what that means. We're afraid of admitting that maybe they're not the right person for us, because admitting that means letting go. It means facing the uncertainty of being alone. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. But let me tell you this, being alone and at peace is 1,000 times better than being with someone who makes you feel unsure of yourself. So what do you do with all of this? You start by being honest with yourself. Stop looking at what someone could be and start looking at what they actually are. How do they make you feel today? Not how you hope they'll make you feel in the future, not how they made you feel in the beginning. Right now, in this moment, what is your gut telling you? Because your gut knows, your heart knows, and deep down, you already have the answer. You just have to be brave enough to listen to it. Attraction is important. It's what draws you in, makes your heart race, and gives you that undeniable spark. But attraction alone doesn't build a relationship that lasts. If all you have is chemistry, you'll wake up one day realizing that no matter how much passion you share, you're fundamentally misaligned. And that's where real love starts to crack. See, when you meet someone you're crazy about, it's easy to get caught up in the moment. You tell yourself, wow, we connect on such a deep level. We laugh at the same jokes. We finish each other's sentences, and the energy between us is unreal. But here's the question most people forget to ask. Do we actually want the same things in life? Do we see the world in a way that's compatible? Because if you don't, then that spark, that chemistry, it's like a firework, brilliant, exciting, but gone in seconds. The right person isn't just someone who excites you, they're someone who aligns with you. And when I say that, I'm not talking about liking the same movies or having the same hobbies. That stuff is fun, but it's surface level. What matters are the big things. Values, lifestyle, and the kind of future you both want to build. If those things don't match, nothing else will hold the relationship together. Think about it. Let's say you value ambition. You're someone who wants to grow, build, push yourself, and create something meaningful in your life, but the person you're with, they're content staying exactly where they are. They don't have the same hunger, the same drive. Now, in the beginning, that might not seem like a problem. You tell yourself, well, they're different from me, but that's okay. We love each other. And you do. But over time, that difference starts to create tension. You feel like you're constantly having to explain why your dreams matter so much to you, why you want more, why settling isn't an option. And instead of feeling supported, you start to feel alone. Or maybe you're someone who sees family as the most important thing. You dream of having kids, building a home filled with love, creating something bigger than yourself. But the person you're with, they have no interest in that. They love their freedom, their independence, and the idea of settling down feels like a cage to them. At first, you try to ignore it. You convince yourself that maybe they'll change their mind, that love will be enough to bridge the gap. But eventually, reality sets in. You realize that no matter how much you adore each other, you're moving in opposite directions. That's why shared values are everything. They're the foundation that holds you together when attraction alone isn't enough. And here's the key. You don't need someone who's exactly like you. You don't need a carbon copy of yourself. But you do need someone whose core values complement yours. So how do you figure that out? You pay attention, not just to their words, but to their actions. It's easy for someone to say they want the same things as you, but do they live it? Do they make choices that align with those values? If someone tells you they're ambitious, but they never follow through on their goals, what does that tell you? If they say they value commitment, but they've never actually committed to anything long term, does that align with what you need? The mistake most people make is hoping that love will fix these differences. They think, if I love them enough, if I'm patient enough, they'll come around. But love isn't about forcing someone to be who you need them to be. It's about finding someone who already is, who already shares the things that matter most to you, who doesn't need convincing because they're already walking the same path. And this is why so many relationships fail. Not because people stop loving each other, but because they never built their relationship on a foundation strong enough to last. They built it on passion, excitement, and chemistry, but not on compatibility. And when real life comes in, when challenges arise, when tough decisions have to be made, love alone isn't enough to keep them together. The right relationship isn't one where you're constantly compromising on what truly matters to you. It's not one where you have to shrink yourself, suppress your desires, or pretend to be okay with things that deep down you're not. The right relationship is one where you both want the same kind of life, where your values don't pull you apart, but bring you closer. And when you find that, that's when you know you're not just with someone you're crazy about, you're with someone you can actually build something real with. When life is easy, when everything is going well, it's effortless for someone to show up. It's easy to be charming, affectionate, and present when the sun is shining and there are no storms to weather. But the real test of a relationship, the true measure of whether someone is right for you, isn't found in the good times. It's revealed in the difficult moments, in the moments when life gets messy, uncertain, and inconvenient. The question is, do they show up for you when it actually matters? Anyone can make promises. Anyone can say they'll be there, that they care, that they love you. But words are easy. It's actions that tell you everything you need to know. When you're struggling, when you're feeling vulnerable, when life hits you with one of those unexpected curveballs, do they step up or do they disappear? Do they make excuses or do they make the effort? Imagine you've had a long, exhausting day. You're overwhelmed, stressed, maybe even feeling like everything is crumbling around you. In that moment, do they notice? Do they check in? Or do they seem too caught up in their own world to even realize something's wrong? The right person doesn't need to be asked to care. They're already paying attention. They're already looking for ways to support you, to make you feel like you're not alone in whatever you're going through. Now, support doesn't always mean fixing your problems. It doesn't mean they have to come in and solve everything for you, but it does mean they acknowledge what you're feeling. They offer a listening ear, a reassuring presence, a simple, "I'm here for you," that reminds you you're not carrying the weight of the world on your own. Because when someone truly cares, they don't just show up when it's convenient for them. They show up when you actually need them. Think about a time when you've had something important happen. Maybe a big interview, a stressful decision, a health scare, or even just a moment of self-doubt. Did they remember? Did they ask how it went? Did they follow up later, not just in the moment, but afterwards to see how you were doing? Because here's the thing, someone who is truly invested in you doesn't forget the things that matter to you. That they don't just ask out of politeness, they ask because they genuinely care about your well-being. And let's talk about consistency, because it's not just about them being there once or twice, it's about patterns. If someone only shows up when it suits them, when they're in the mood, when they have nothing better to do, that's not real support. That's conditional effort. The right person doesn't pick and choose when to care about you. They don't disappear the moment things get tough or uncomfortable. They don't become distant when you need them most. If you have to wonder whether they'll be there the next time you need them, that's already your answer. But here's something important. Don't confuse presence with proximity. Just because someone is physically around doesn't mean they're truly showing up for you. There are people who will sit next to you in the same room and still make you feel alone. There are people who will nod at your words, but never actually hear what you're saying. The right person doesn't just occupy space in your life, they actively participate in it. They are engaged, present, and invested in understanding you, in supporting you, in making you feel like you matter. And it's not just about them being there for you, it's about how they show up when things aren't going their way either. Do they communicate when they're upset, or do they withdraw and make you guess what's wrong? Do they still make an effort when they're stressed, or do they only prioritize the relationship when everything is perfect for them? Because real connection isn't about showing up only when it's easy. It's about showing up when it's difficult, uncomfortable, or inconvenient. because that's when it really counts. There will always be moments in a relationship where life tests both of you. Maybe it's something small, like a tough week at work. Maybe it's something huge, like a family crisis. In those moments, you'll see someone's true character, not just in what they say, but in what they do. Do they distance themselves, make excuses, leave you to deal with it alone? Or do they lean in, hold space for you, and remind you that you don't have to go through it by yourself? You deserve someone who stands beside you in those moments. Someone who, when they say they'll be there, actually follows through. Someone who sees you at your lowest and doesn't run, who doesn't just enjoy the highlight reel of your life, but is also there for the unedited, unfiltered reality of it. Because love isn't just about the grand gestures, the exciting dates, the fun moments. It's about presence, about reliability, about showing up when it truly matters. So ask yourself, do they show up for you, not just in the good times, but in the tough ones? Because if they don't, you're already getting your answer. Every relationship has disagreements. That's just a fact. Two people, no matter how in sync they are, will never see eye to eye on everything. But the way someone handles conflict tells you everything about whether they're truly right for you. It's easy to be amazing when things are fun, when you're out on dates, sharing laughs, feeling that spark. But what happens when there's tension? What happens when one of you is stressed? When there's a misunderstanding? When life throws something unexpected your way? That's when you get to see the real foundation of the relationship. The person who is right for you isn't the one who never disagrees with you. They're the one who knows how to disagree in a way that strengthens your connection instead of breaking it down. It's about handling conflict in a way that makes you feel respected, valued, and safe. Think about it. When there's a problem, does this person communicate? Or do they shut down, disappear, and make you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Do they listen, or do they just wait for their turn to talk? Do they try to understand your point of view, or are they just looking to win the argument? These little details say everything about the relationship's future. If someone truly cares about you, they won't make you feel small in an argument. They won't weaponize your insecurities just to get the upper hand. They won't twist your words or make you feel guilty for bringing up something that's bothering you. A person who is right for you will want to resolve things, not just be right. They'll see conflict as an opportunity to grow together, not a battlefield where one person has to win and the other has to lose. Because let's be honest, if every disagreement turns into a war, then no one wins in the long run. Resentment builds, communication breaks down, and suddenly you're stuck in a cycle of fighting without ever actually fixing anything. You can tell so much about someone by the way they handle difficult moments. Do they meet you with patience, or do they react with anger and defensiveness? Do they belittle you, or do they try to understand you? Do they take responsibility for their mistakes, or do they shift the blame? Because if every time something goes wrong, it's suddenly all your fault, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a courtroom where you're constantly being put on trial, and that is exhausting. A healthy relationship is one where both people feel safe enough to express themselves without fear of being attacked or dismissed. Sometimes it's not even about the argument itself, but about what happens after. Do they hold a grudge for days, punishing you with silence? Do they make you feel like you have to grovel just to get back in their good graces? Or do they show you that even when there's tension, they're still there, still choosing to work through it with you? Because that's what love looks like. Not perfection, not never fighting, but knowing that even when things are hard, you're still on the same team. When someone is right for you, they'll never make you feel like love is conditional on you agreeing with them 100% of the time. Pay attention to the patterns, not just the apologies. It's easy for someone to say, "I'm sorry," but do their actions actually change? Do they learn from past conflicts? Or do they repeat the same behaviors over and over again? Anyone can say they'll do better, but the right person shows you they mean it by actually doing better. If you find yourself having the same argument again and again, feeling unheard, feeling like no matter how clearly you communicate, nothing ever really changes, that's a sign. Because love isn't just about words, it's about action. And let's talk about another big one. How do they react when you express an emotion they don't like? Do they get dismissive? Do they tell you you're overreacting? Do they make you feel ridiculous for having feelings? That's a major red flag. The right person will respect your emotions, even if they don't always understand them. They'll take you seriously. They won't roll their eyes or make you feel dramatic. They won't tell you to calm down or act like your feelings are inconvenient. They'll care enough to ask questions, to try and see things from your perspective. Because real connection isn't about agreeing on everything. It's about making each other feel heard, even when you don't see things the same way. Now, here's something important. If someone only treats you well when things are good, but turns into a completely different person when conflict arises, you need to ask yourself if that's really the kind of relationship you want. Because at the end of the day, how someone treats you in the tough moments says more about them than how they treat you in the easy ones. A relationship that can't handle conflict in a healthy way is a relationship that will eventually crumble. And that's not because of the arguments themselves, but because of how those arguments are handled. So ask yourself, when you fight, do you feel like you're still on the same side? Do you feel like you're solving a problem together? Or do you feel like you're constantly battling against them? Do you feel safe enough to express yourself? Or do you hold back because you're afraid of their reaction? These are the questions that matter, because the right person won't make you afraid to speak your mind. The right person won't make you feel like love is something you have to earn by avoiding conflict. The right person will make it clear through their words, their actions, and their consistency that even when things aren't perfect, they still choose you. Every time. If you constantly feel like you have to prove your worth or chase their attention, step back. Love should feel mutual, not like a never-ending audition. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow, because when we want someone, when we're drawn to them in a way that feels rare and intoxicating, we convince ourselves that just a little more effort will tip the scales in our favor. Just one more thoughtful message, just one more compromise, just one more chance to show them how great we are. But real love, the kind that lasts, is never about convincing. Think about the times you've had to chase someone. Not in the playful, flirty way where there's excitement on both sides, but in the exhausting, anxiety-ridden way where you're always wondering what they're thinking. You're overanalyzing their text. You're questioning whether you said the right thing, whether you came across as too eager, whether you should pull back just to get a reaction. And here's the truth you need to hear. When you're with the right person, you don't have to play those games. You don't have to strategize your way into their heart. Love isn't about working overtime to be chosen. It's about being met halfway by someone who wants to choose you, just as much as you want to choose them. When you feel like you have to try too hard, it's often because deep down you sense that the connection isn't balanced. Maybe they're inconsistent, sometimes affectionate, sometimes distant. Maybe they're not as invested as you are. And instead of recognizing that, you double down, you give more, you bend over backward to make it work. But ask yourself, what's actually happening in that dynamic? The more you give, the less they have to. The more you chase, the more they pull away. It creates an emotional imbalance where one person is always proving and the other is just receiving. And here's the hard truth. When someone truly values you, you never have to sell them on your worth. There's a difference between effort and overcompensation. Healthy relationships require effort, absolutely, but the effort should be reciprocal. It should feel like two people who are both trying to create something meaningful together, not one person constantly trying to prove why they're good enough to stay. When you're in the right relationship, the effort you put in is met with equal enthusiasm. You don't feel like you're on an emotional treadmill, running just to keep up with someone who's barely moving towards you. A lot of people think that if they just become the perfect version of themselves, then finally this person will see their value. If they're more agreeable, more attractive, more successful, then maybe this time they'll stay. But love isn't something you earn by becoming someone else. The right person won't make you feel like you have to constantly be on, like you have to impress them every second just to keep their attention. In the right relationship, you feel safe to just be. To be your goofy self, your ambitious self, your flawed self. And instead of walking on eggshells, hoping you don't say or do the wrong thing, you feel at ease because deep down, you know that you are enough exactly as you are. One of the biggest mistakes people make is confusing attention with affection. Just because someone gives you crumbs of their time doesn't mean they're invested. Just because they text you at midnight doesn't mean they want a future with you. Just because they show up when it's convenient for them doesn't mean they care in the way you deserve. The right relationship isn't about proving yourself to someone who only notices you in flashes. It's about being with someone who sees you clearly and chooses you consistently. The person who's right for you will never make you feel like you have to constantly prove your worth. They will never leave you questioning whether they actually care. Because when someone truly values you, they don't put you in a position where you feel like you have to beg for love, for time, for effort. Love that is right for you feels mutual. It feels natural. It doesn't require you to shrink yourself or bend into impossible shapes just to fit into someone's life. If you find yourself in a dynamic where you're always the one initiating, always the one planning, always the one keeping the relationship alive, take a step back. Let the space exist. See if they step forward. And if they don't, that's your answer. It's not that you weren't good enough. It's not that you needed to try harder. It's that they were never truly ready to meet you where you are. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you free yourself to find someone who is. Because the right person, they don't make you chase them. They walk beside you, hand in hand, with the same effort, the same energy, and the same love you bring to the table. And that's the kind of love that lasts. You ever notice how in some relationships you feel like you're constantly editing yourself? You second guess your words, you hold back parts of your personality, and over time it starts to feel like you're playing a role rather than being yourself. That's not love, that's self-preservation. And the truth is, the right relationship isn't one where you have to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's life. It's the one where you feel the most like you, the truest version of yourself, without fear of rejection or judgment. When you're with someone who's truly right for you, you don't walk on eggshells. You don't filter every thought before speaking, afraid that one wrong word might change how they see you. Instead, there's this incredible ease, this natural flow where you can say what's on your mind without worrying that your honesty will push them away. And that's because real love isn't about perfection. It's about being seen and still being embraced. Think about it. How often do we try to present the best version of ourselves at the start of a relationship? We try to be extra charming, extra agreeable, extra whatever we think they'll like. But if we can't maintain that version of ourselves forever, then all we've done is create an illusion. And illusions, no matter how beautiful, always fade. The right person isn't falling for the highlight reel, they're falling for the real you. On your best days and your worst, when you're confident and when you're doubtful, when you're fun and when you're tired. And if you can't show up as you are, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. The problem is, too many people get into relationships where they feel like they have to be smaller, quieter, or less opinionated. Maybe they tone down their sense of humor because their partner doesn't laugh at their jokes. Maybe they hold back their excitement about their goals because they don't want to seem too much. And slowly, bit by bit, they start to disappear. Not because anyone told them to, but because they're afraid that if they show their true selves, they'll lose the connection. But what kind of connection is that? If you have to dull your own light just to keep someone around, you're not in love, you're in a compromise. Now, this doesn't mean that being in a great relationship means you never have to grow or adjust. A relationship should challenge you in ways that make you better. But there's a difference between growing and conforming. Growth is when your partner inspires you to become an even stronger, wiser, more capable version of yourself. Conforming is when you start erasing parts of who you are just to maintain the peace. When you're with the right person, your quirks aren't something you have to explain away. Your passions aren't something you have to downplay. Your insecurities aren't something you have to hide. You feel safe enough to be vulnerable because you know that their love isn't conditional on you being perfect. And that kind of safety creates the deepest connection. That's when you can laugh at yourself, admit when you're scared, share your weird thoughts without hesitation, because you trust that they're not looking for a polished version of you, they're looking for you. Let me ask you this. If you knew for a fact that the person you're with right now would never love the real you, would you still stay? If the answer is no, then why waste another moment in a relationship where you have to keep pretending? Because the longer you pretend, the more you start to forget who you actually are. And one day you wake up next to someone who doesn't really know you, and worse, you don't even know yourself anymore. When you're with the right person, you don't just feel loved, you feel seen. There's no greater feeling than knowing that someone understands you. Not because you worked hard to make them understand, but because they were paying attention. They care enough to notice the little things, the way your eyes light up when you talk about your dreams, the way you get quiet when something's on your mind, the way you fidget when you're excited. And when someone sees you like that, without you having to beg for it, it makes you feel like you finally belong. That's what we're looking for. Not just love, but belonging. Not just a partner, but a home. And home isn't a place where you have to perform. Home is where you can just be. So here's the truth. If being yourself means you lose them, they were never the right person for you. The right person won't make you feel like a problem to solve or a project to fix. They won't make you feel like you have to dim your light just so they can shine. They'll love you, not despite your flaws, but because of who you are entirely. And when you find that kind of love, you'll realize that all the times you held back, all the times you tried to be someone else just to fit in, it was never worth it. Because nothing is more attractive, nothing is more magnetic than someone who is unapologetically themselves.